about 3.5 pounds of chicken backs, and I've washed it with the juice of half of a lime and cool water. And you know, this one takes me back to, as we season this up here, it takes me back to the early 90s. I was relatively new to Canada. Yo man, I was in school, I was working, times were really tough, and I had Kiana, my oldest daughter, was born, and times were tough. So while I sorted out everything for her and her mom and everybody else, there were times when there wasn't money for food for me, and chicken backs, $1.25, you'll get a big pack of it. And it was never about the meat part of it. It was more about getting the flavor and the essence of it and giving you back a little taste of home. So in this recipe here, as you watch me go through things, I started with black pepper and some salt. You'll notice that it's totally different, and the technique and everything else is different than the sort of curry chicken you're accustomed to see me doing. We've got some diced onion, and the reason being, I'm trying to stick to that recipe. It was very nostalgic to me. I was in the grocery store earlier today, and I saw the chicken backs, and I'm like, I gotta do this recipe, man. So we got onions, tomato. Back in the old days, didn't even have money for tomato. We always had onion though, and the curry powder. That curry powder, back then, I didn't know about making my own curry powder. It used to come from, back then it wasn't the dollar store. Everybody used to go to Giant Tiger and Bag and Harold's and stuff like that to get it. The curry powder would have come from there. I didn't have curry powder from the Caribbean, or I didn't make my own back then. I've got, say, some anchar masala, which I used to get from my aunt, who I used to live with before I moved out on my own and started having kids and stuff like that. And Caribbean green seasoning whenever anybody would be coming back from the Caribbean, because again, stuff to make a simple thing like this, like Caribbean green seasoning, we couldn't get the ingredients here. Pepper, this is pepper sauce, yeah, and that is the sort of spicy element to this, because back then you cannot get fresh Scotch bonnet peppers and stuff like that, yeah. It was always whatever somebody would bring back, family, relatives and stuff like that would bring back from the islands. That is what we had. So pepper sauce, today I have access to fresh Shadow Benny, to fresh Scotch bonnet peppers. I grow my own and stuff like that. That was it, yeah. I'm gonna give that a good mix now. And you saw me put the curry in there, and it's only because I used to work full-time in the nighttime, go to school during the day full-time. All I got back then was about an hour or two of sleep, and I had to keep going, yeah, because I had a child, I had a wife and stuff like that, and I had to provide for us. So this was the easiest and cheapest meal I could get. Back then I used to get I used to appreciate white rice. I dislike plain old white rice now because of that, because it takes me back to then. Bologna, I hate bologna. Well, not hate, I just dislike it. Bologna, because fried bologna sandwich was, man, times were tough, yeah. So while it's all kind of niceness happening in here, the nostalgic part of it takes me back to a simpler, man, poor days, boy, poor days. Give thanks, I'm still around and thing and I doing my thing, yeah. Anyways, I've got a nice big white pan here, and that's the other thing as well too. The pots and pans and everything we had was hand-me-downs from people who just wanted to see us thrive, and they gave us the extra pots and pans and stuff like that they had laying around. It wasn't any of the nice pots you see me using now. I don't know if you guys saw the video I did a couple days ago where we did the pureed garlic, and it's pureed in olive oil. So I'm gonna add a tablespoon and a half of that in there. Going back to that recipe back then, garlic would never made its way into my cooking because I couldn't afford garlic back then, yeah. So it would just be some vegetable oil, and I would toss everything in there and cook it down. And it was more about the gravy from that chicken. It was more about the being close to home and stuff like that, something that reminded you of home. I'm just going to add just a tiny bit more oil here. So I've got maybe a tablespoon more, well, a tablespoon of that olive oil in there. And again, yeah, I'm using olive oil now. Look at me, yeah? Back then it was all about just plain old vegetable oil, the cheapest thing I could find. Because again, times were really tough, man. And I apologize if this seems a bit too personal for you guys and I'm going on like I'm trying to get anybody petite or anything like that. That is not the point of it. The point of it is sharing a deeper part of me with you. When I share a recipe with you guys, it's always something very personal. It's something from the heart. There's a lot of love in my cooking, and I hope it shows. And this is just another level of that love that I'm sharing with you guys. Turn my heat up to medium high, and we're going to toss in all the pieces of chicken like so. I'm going to rinse this with about 1.5 cups of water, and we're going to keep it. But for now, we're just going to move this around just to sear the pieces of chicken with it. Yeah, I've had the lid on it there for about a minute or two just to bring it up to that sort of boil that you're seeing there. I'm just going to keep stirring it around, and I'm going to keep the lid on there. You know, not only was Uncle Chris in a foreign land struggling to make ends meet, to make sure his family was taken care of, sorting out my education and everything else. Your ingredients were difficult to find, as I said, and you know, money played a huge part in that as well too, because if I had the money, if I had the means, I didn't own a car, I could have driven to Toronto to Danforth Food Mart. That was the closest kind of area you can get. You could have got to some Caribbean ingredients and stuff like that, but that wasn't an option. Yo, I was so distant from home. A simple thing like a phone call, I wasn't allowed to have a phone conversation with my mom and dad or my sister and my brother. And when I say allowed, it means because in the small village that I grew up in and where they were living at the time, there were no phones. They had to jump in a taxi and go down to my cousin's house, down into another little town, and we would schedule a once-a-month call, once a month, because, yo, man, times were tough in Trinidad as well, too, and my parents just couldn't afford to be doing and making these calls and stuff like that every week. So we would schedule a once-a-month call, and that's when I would get to talk to my mom and dad. I don't think I ever spoke to my dad. It was always my mom. But my sister would write me letters, my brother would write me letters, and communication came via the mail. What I'm going to do is put the lid back on there and let that cook for another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll add the water to finish cooking it. Now this, yeah, there's a lot of talking going on here, but it's backs, and the backs is all bones, and there's hardly any meat, so it won't take that long to cook through. Got a lovely bubble happening. So what I'm going to do now is hit that another stir. And again, if you're looking for, yo, better, and I mean, yo, this is good. This satisfied me in so many ways back then, but now I know I do better with the different recipes for making curry chicken that I have. I say recipes because there's a few I've shared with you. You're going to have to head over to CaribbeanPot.com for that. What I'm going to do here now is add that water, bring that up to a boil, reduce the heat, and let that cook until the chicken is nice and fully cooked all the way through, developed a little bit of flavor, and we've got a nice thick gravy. The gravy was the important part. I'm looking back now in my head, and I'm thinking, without that gravy, I don't know, man, I wouldn't have survived. And you know, it wasn't only curry chicken. It would have been curry stew, it would have been stew chicken. A lot of people call brown stew. Because that chicken back was, yo, and I was counting coins when I had to run across the road to the grocery store to get this. So, yo, man, I am so grateful and thankful for, yo, man, those days. It built me, the character and everything, the man that I am today. And hopefully my children will watch this video and they will say, you know what, Dad really put in the work for us, boy. Maybe my son, Zaire, will look in a few years at this video and he too will get some inspiration from it. It's been going with the lid on for about 10 minutes after we added that water in there. So this is fully cooked. I mean, there's, you know, it's all bones if you're paying attention, yeah. So what we're gonna do is crank up the heat now just to thicken up the gravy and just concentrate the flavor just a little bit more. Earlier you saw me put anchar masala. Back in the old days, I was never a fan of cumin, or what we call jeera, so it would never even make an appearance in my curry dishes. So yeah, we're just going to leave the lid off, crank up the heat, and burn off quite a bit of this liquid. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me. Email address down here. I'm really trying to tell people the email address, then but we'll take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pot. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie? Now, cilantro was never a part of that recipe, but I have it in the fridge and I love cilantro. Only because I don't have shadow benny in the fridge right now, that is why cilantro is going in there. And again, back in the old days, yo, you couldn't even get cilantro in regular grocery stores here in Canada. I kid you not. Yo, I really hope this recipe and our little talk here inspires you. You know, sometimes we go through things and it's just a learning experience, and it builds character, as I said. So I do hope you guys get the opportunity, one, to watch this video, two, give the recipe a try, and hopefully from me sharing my story with you guys, you will know no matter what you're going through. And my life isn't perfect, I'm far from it, and I'm dealing with daily things coming at me. But yo, those days back in the early 90s in Canada, when everything was strange, built character. And according to the old saying, my shoulder's strong, I could take it. Chris here at CaribbeanPot.com. I'm just gonna let this tighten up just a little bit more, because the gravy's a little bit too runny. Yeah, always a pleasure having you guys here in the kitchen with me. I'm gonna give it another minute, shut it down, and let the residual heat thicken things up.
What's up, soldiers? Don't forget to click subscribe. If you've already clicked subscribe, hit that bell notification thing. I want to all you missing out on the new videos, man. Come on, click.